So I've got some cool vocal techniques that I want to show off. I use clip gain a ton, and we're going to kick it off by showing you not just how to even out a performance like you may have seen with clip gain, but we're going to bring up some of the nuances in the character of a vocal performance and show you how if you take the time, it's a little tedious, but if you put in the effort, your vocals are going to stand out from the guy down the street who's just smashing things with a compressor. So up here we have the song Love Runs Out. It's a cover originally by One Republic, and we have the very talented Blanca Callahan. You may have heard her. Those of you who know the contemporary Christian world, she was in Group 1 Crew for the longest time, and then she broke out on her own. One of the perks of growing up in Orlando, got connected with Pablo Villatoro from Group 1 Crew, and then when Blanca broke out, he made the introduction, did some demo work with her, and had the pleasure of mixing some stuff for her. So we've got her voice, very talented, super transient, heavy, and dynamic, and all over the place. And so we're going to use this as an opportunity to showcase using clip gain for a vocal. So this vocal right now is going through, there were stacks, and so you had multiple takes that were overlapping, and so I sent all of her lead vocal passes for intro, first verse, chorus, all of that. They're going to a bus, the lead vocal here. That would typically just be your main lead vocal track. If you didn't have any overlapping vocals, her vocal would just be on this track. But since we have that, and I created a special sound for the first verse, it's kind of a, I can call it a radio effect, kind of a slightly driven effect. We've broken it out a little bit different, but for the sake of this example, just imagine this lead vocal is her main track here. We're just going to look at this one little part right here. So I've got a little EQ, little compression. That goes into a parallel compressor. I've got the VMR distressor rocking here, 10 dB at all times for that parallel chain. Not what we're going to showcase here, but then we go into some other processing that I've actually turned off, and we're going to go ahead and I've muted the reverb. I just want to pay attention to the original performance, how dynamic it is, and the technique of using clip gain. Now, I didn't record this vocal as evidenced by the lack of compression on the way in, but I think this is going to give us a great example for what I want to showcase. So let me shut up and actually show you what we want to do here. So here is the vocal, and I think it's in solo.
There's a maniac right in front of me. Got an angel on my shoulder and Mephistopheles. But mama raised me good. Mama raised me right. Mama said, do what you want.
Okay, so we got soft parts, we got loud parts. We could pretty much hear everything, but we're in solo. So let's take it out of solo, and let's see how the dynamics. And remember, we've hit this with an 1176 and a distressor with 10 dB plus reduction at all times. Let's take a listen to that one part in context of the mix.
There's a maniac right in front of me. Got an angel on my shoulder and Mephistopheles, but mama.
All over the place, right? We're missing her, we're losing her, the articulation's not there. So let's dive in, let's see if we can do a little bit. Now, in context, I want that music going so that I can really feel what's happening. Let's take a listen to this first little section here.
There's a maniac right in front.
It sounds like there's a maniac. That doesn't mean anything, right? So we want to step up the intelligibility of this vocal and get a little more articulation. So we're going to come in here where I feel like she's dipping. Obviously, we can see it here right at the end of this phrase. And I'm going to pull up, not like that. I typically will do something like this, kind of draw it up a bit there, get some breakpoints. Now, the keyboard shortcut, if you're in Pro Tools, is going to be to hold Command on Mac or Control on PC, and that little cursor is going to turn into a little hand there. If you don't have the clip gain line up, that's going to be Control on Mac, Shift, and then the hyphen key. You can show that, or you could right-click the file, go to Clip Gain, Show Line. Same thing. So now that we've got the line shown, you can see I'm using these breakpoints, Command click, and I'm just pulling up and adding some oomph there to the back end, and I may even go a little bit more here and try to move through. We're just doing an example, David. I don't have to it doesn't have to be perfect. So now let's take a listen to that.
There's a maniac right in front of me.
Okay, maybe that was a little bit too much. I'm going to back off a little bit. But now it sounds still like there's a maniac. That doesn't say anything. Okay. So the "ka" for maniac is at the start of this next word here. So I'm going to go in, we're going to crank that and see if we can't get that to be a little more intelligible on top of the mix.
There's a maniac right in front of me.
Not perfect. You could go and find maybe where she said it better, copy, paste it. But for the most part, that is going to be a lot better than this.
Runs out. There's a maniac right in front of me.
And let's put it back.
Runs out. There's a maniac right in front of me.
It's better, okay? So now I do have compressors and multi-bands and all this other stuff and some top end that's going to help it be more intelligible. I'll put all the effects in, and then maybe we'll break down my effects processing.
Runs out. There's a maniac right in front of me.
And there you go. So with that extra processing, the level being boosted and the effects, that little bit of clip gain love. Let's turn all that clip gain off with the effects on and see if we can tell.
Runs out. There's a maniac right in front of me.
I got to boost the volume a little bit.
Runs out. There's a maniac right in front of me.
Versus, we're going to put it back. Oh, it's not going to let me put it back. Okay, I did something weird with the undo history, but I think you get the point. Clip gain is a great way. Starts of phrases, ends of phrases. You can definitely go in and balance things out. If you've got, peaks in here and you want to tame them that way, you could. I typically rely on heavy compression to tame the louder parts of a performance, but I will use clip gain to even out sections and to create emphasize character in the starts or ends of phrases to help with articulation, add back some consonants and things like that. So cool little trick there. Hopefully you dig that. I also wanted to give you a quick look. Again, we have what I like to do is EQ into compression first. I'll hit it with, actually, let me back up. What I like to do with vocals is listen first, then process. If I've got a vocal that comes to me with no compression, it'll be pretty obvious. It'll be lots of dynamic changes and things like that. In that case, I like to hit it with what I would have used tracking, which is usually an 1176 and LA2A to kind of help thicken up and even out the vocal performance. In this case, I just have an 1176, but I'm hitting that as kind of a first stage of compression, whereas if I have a vocal that's already compressed in the recording, I'm not going to probably use that first 1176. I'm just going to send it into the parallel. And then for me, I've got the lead vocal here, a little bit of compression, the vocal crush, which is that VMR distressor. This could be 1176. Pick a compressor and smash it. 10 dB of reduction at all times. These two meet at what I call the lead vocal level. This track is where I'm going to do more EQ, maybe more compression, maybe saturation or some cool stuff to thicken things up or get a vocal to cut a little bit more. Sometimes decapitator. The one I'm thinking of is Devil Lock from Sound Toys is a cool one to throw on here if I'm going for just a flatline sound. This is where I'm going to treat with some surgical EQ, multi-band, any problem frequencies, boost more top if I need it, and then de-ess. I did want to show you real quick a cool trick for de-essing. Let me find a spot where she's got an S.
There's a maniac right in front of me. Got an angel on my shoulder.
An angel on my shoulder. Let's go.
Got an angel on my shoulder.
On my shoulder, so...
On my shoulder, on my shoulder, on my shoulder.
Now you can see S's typically and breaths, it kind of have a similar shape like a football, and kind of see it right in here. But I'm going to loop a section when I'm going to de-ess a vocal. Drives everyone in the house crazy when I mix on monitors, but we'll loop it.
On my shoulder, on my shoulder.
And so I've already got a de-esser here. My favorite is a Fab Filter by far, but your stock de-esser is going to work great. I loop a section. And then I go to the audition feature. Sometimes I'll de-ess in stages where I'll get the lower range, just a fancy multi-band compressor, but I'll listen and see if there's anything, T's, P's, I don't know, sometimes some consonants will cut through a little bit too much, and so I'll grab them in the lower register, kind of in a 2 to 4K, 2 to 5K range, but the de-essing S's are typically going to be in that 4, 5, 7, 8, 10K range, right? So sometimes I'll have two de-essers serving two different purposes, but for this one, we just have one trying to get the sibilance, the top end S's. And so here, we've looped it.
On my shoulder, on my shoulder.
And I'll set the threshold. The Fab Filter gives us the option to do split band, which allows me to just crank the threshold and then set the range to taste. So let's say all the way off. And I would actually listen with the audition feature and kind of... right in there, about 4.7, 5K and above is where most of that sharp S sound is going to come from. So now that I know where it's at, I can go deal with it. So let's listen without it.
Below my shoulder and below my shoulder and below my shoulder.
And I'll do too much, so you give her a lisp, and it sounds really weird.
Below my shoulder and below my shoulder and below my shoulder and below my shoulder and below my.
And then I'll slowly back that off until it sounds good.
Below my shoulder and 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 below my shoulder.
And I'll tell you the truth, her S's aren't bothering me too much, so that in context with the whole mix, I would keep an eye on it, maybe tame them a little bit. But a couple dB seems to work really well. Good mic selection. Maybe she's just not a very sibilant singer, but that seems to work well for me. But looping that section, drive your family crazy while you find it, get it knocked out, de-ess it, and then listen in context, and you should be moving on. So hopefully you dig those vocal tips. Let's move on.